I want you to remember the last time you checked your bank account and felt disappointed despite working hard. That quiet frustration is more common than you think, and it does not mean you are irresponsible or failing. For years, I believed my problem was income until I realized money was leaking through invisible daily habits. This video is not here to shame you, but to calmly explain why money keeps feeling tight lately. If you appreciate honest money conversations without hype, please like this video so it reaches people quietly struggling. Leave a comment describing how money feels right now, and subscribe if you want calmer clarity over time. I am Alex, and I want to walk with you through patterns that quietly drain finances for millions. Money problems are rarely loud because they exhaust you slowly while life keeps demanding more attention every single day. Most people think being broke means having no money, but the real issue is having no margin financially. According to recent Federal Reserve data, many Americans cannot handle a small emergency without stress or taking on debt. If one unexpected bill can derail your month, the risk already exists beneath the surface of your finances. I learned that income was not my enemy because habits decide whether money stays or escapes over time. In this video, I will break down 8 quiet financial leaks you can finally recognize and fix consistently. These are not dramatic mistakes, but small repeated behaviors that compound into stress and stagnation over many years. The first leak appears when money has no destination and decisions become emotional and inconsistent over time always. I used to save responsibly, yet feel stuck because I never defined where I was going financially forward. Goals are not dreams, but filters that guide spending choices when temptation shows up unexpectedly in daily life. Without clear goals, every purchase feels justified, and progress becomes hard to measure or feel over the years. Once I defined specific timelines, my money decisions felt lighter because trade-offs finally made sense to me personally. If money feels chaotic for you, direction may be missing, and that realization changes everything from this point. When money lacks direction, it slowly disappears because every choice becomes emotional instead of intentional over time eventually. If you never tell money where to go, it quietly decides to leave without asking permission first from you. The second leak begins when people assume emergencies are rare rather than inevitable parts of adult life today. Most financial setbacks happen suddenly through car repairs, medical bills, or short gaps in employment income unexpectedly often. Recent consumer protection data shows emergencies are the leading cause of new credit card debt nationwide today. Consistently. Emergencies do not create poverty, they simply expose how fragile a financial system already was beneath the surface. Without a buffer, stress takes over and decisions become reactive instead of calm, thoughtful, and strategic long-term. I remember the anxiety of choosing between bills because I lacked preparation, not intelligence at that moment then. Debt often enters quietly promising relief, but charging interest for every single day of panic and stress afterward. When emergencies meet credit cards, the future becomes harder long after the original problem disappears completely unexpectedly later. If this feels familiar, pause and recognize awareness is already the first step toward real change for you. The third leak happens when people avoid looking at their numbers because clarity feels uncomfortable at first emotionally. Many people do not run out of money, they simply lose track of where it goes each month. Paychecks arrive and disappear, leaving confusion, frustration, and a constant sense of financial pressure that builds over time. Research shows most Americans avoid budgeting because they believe restriction matters more than awareness at first glance initially. Budgeting is not about control, but about understanding patterns that quietly shape your future outcomes over many years. When you see the numbers clearly, choices become easier, and financial guilt slowly fades away with time naturally. Avoiding reality always costs more emotionally than facing uncomfortable truths with patience and honesty about your own finances. Awareness always comes before control, and no lasting improvement happens without it first in any area of life. Once I tracked everything, money stopped feeling mysterious and finally started feeling manageable again for the first time. The fourth leak appears when people focus only on today while quietly ignoring the long-term consequences of every decision. I understand the desire to enjoy life now because none of us want to delay happiness forever unnecessarily. The problem begins when enjoyment replaces planning and tomorrow is treated like someone else's responsibility entirely. I learned that future versions of ourselves eventually pay for the comfort we choose today without realizing it. Every dollar you spend is a vote, either supporting your present comfort or your future stability and freedom. Balance matters because ignoring tomorrow slowly creates stress that no amount of present enjoyment can erase later. The fifth leak hides inside small habits that feel harmless, but quietly drain progress month after month. It is rarely one big purchase, but repeated small spending that slowly reshapes financial outcomes over time. Subscriptions eating out convenience purchases and impulse rewards often feel earned but compound silently in the background. I once justified these expenses because each one felt insignificant compared to my larger financial goals. What changed everything was realizing how small amounts consistently redirected could completely alter my long-term trajectory. Imagine investing $250 monthly instead of spending it without noticing for 20 years straight. That single shift could mean security, peace, and options, rather than constant pressure and limited choices later. Small leaks matter because consistency works against you just as powerfully as it can work for you. The sixth leak appears through bad debt, which feels helpful now, but extracts value relentlessly over time. Interest always works, and the only question is whether it is building your future or draining it. I learned that paying interest meant I was working for past decisions instead of future opportunities. Credit cards and financed purchases often hide their true cost behind convenience and delayed consequences. Bad debt makes progress heavier because it demands payment before growth can even begin properly. Recognizing this shift helped me rethink borrowing and choose patience over pressure more often. The seventh leak appears when people spend money trying to look successful instead of building real financial stability. I have met many people who appear wealthy yet feel constant pressure behind the scenes every single day. I admit I once bought things mainly to feel ahead even when my finances quietly struggled underneath everything. Social comparison creates invisible pressure that convinces us spending equals progress and restraint equals failure over time for many people. Impressing others feels rewarding briefly, but often leaves long-term consequences that last far beyond the moment financially. Looking rich is expensive because appearances demand constant maintenance without ever providing true financial security or peace of mind. The eighth leak begins when people fail to pay themselves first before spending everything else consistently every month. I learned saving alone is not enough, because money must work consistently to create long-term freedom for you. When investing depends on motivation, it becomes optional, and inconsistency slowly destroys momentum over time for most people. Automation changed everything, because progress continued even when discipline and energy were low or distracted for me personally. Paying yourself first removes decision fatigue and protects your future before temptation ever has a chance to interfere. When investing happens, automatically, money stops feeling stressful and starts feeling purposeful again over long periods of time. At this point, you may recognize several patterns that quietly shaped your financial situation over many years already. This realization can feel heavy, but awareness creates power rather than guilt or shame about past choices for most people. I want you to understand, none of these habits mean you are lazy, careless, or incapable as a person. Most people were simply never taught a system that supports calm, consistent financial progress over decades of life. The problem was never you, but the invisible rules guiding your money without your awareness for years silently. Once you see the system clearly change, becomes practical instead of overwhelming or emotional and more sustainable long-term. Fixing habits feels lighter than chasing higher income when the foundation finally supports you properly underneath everything else. From here forward, clarity becomes your advantage, and small changes begin compounding steadily in your favor over time consistently. The next shift happens when you realize progress accelerates once habits align and money finally works with you. At this stage, frustration slowly turns into clarity because patterns replace confusion, and choices feel lighter daily consistently. Clarity does not mean perfection, but it creates momentum that feels empowering rather than exhausting over time consistently. This is where many people finally understand wealth grows quietly. through systems, not emotional bursts of effort alone. When systems replace willpower, progress continues even during busy, stressful seasons of normal everyday life for most people. I want to pause here because reflection helps lock understanding deeper than rushing forward without intention or clarity. Think about which of these habits quietly shaped your past decisions without you ever noticing clearly before today. Awareness changes your relationship with money because intention replaces guilt, fear, and constant second-guessing over time consistently. Once guilt fades, curiosity takes over, and improvement feels possible rather than overwhelming or discouraging again for you. This mindset shift matters because sustainable change requires patience, repetition, and forgiveness along the way for long-term. Tor Warner, you do not fix money overnight, but you rebuild trust with it through consistent actions over time steadily. As trust grows, stress shrinks, and financial decisions feel calmer, clearer, and more confident over time naturally again. I want you to know this process is realistic, achievable, and built for normal lives, not extremes only. You do not need perfection, discipline, or luck, just systems that support you consistently over time daily life. Small decisions repeated daily shape financial outcomes more than dramatic changes ever could for most people long term. Sat. This is why focusing on habits creates leverage regardless of income level or background for almost everyone everywhere. Before we finish, I want you to take a breath and notice how much clarity you have now. Clarity is the beginning of control, and control leads to freedom over time through consistent, intentional choices daily. You are no longer guessing because you finally understand why money behaved the way it did for years. That understanding is what separates lasting progress from temporary motivation and false hope for most people long term. Understanding your past money behavior gives you power because patterns lose control once they are clearly identified. Many people repeat financial mistakes not from carelessness, but because no one ever explained the system behind them. When you see money as a system instead of emotion, decisions become calmer, more logical, and easier to maintain. This perspective removes shame and replaces it with curiosity about what small change actually matters most. Progress begins when curiosity replaces judgment and learning becomes more valuable than blaming yourself for years. Core 3. I want you to notice how different this feels compared to constant pressure to earn more immediately. Chasing income without fixing habits often creates exhaustion rather than lasting financial improvement over time. Higher income magnifies existing behavior, whether healthy or destructive, which surprises many people later. That is why fixing habits first creates stability that income growth can finally build upon. Once habits support you, money stops feeling unpredictable and begins responding consistently to your actions. This shift creates emotional relief because control feels possible even before numbers dramatically change. Feeling calm around money matters because stress often drives the very decisions that cause setbacks. When stress decreases, patience increases, allowing better long-term choices to replace impulsive reactions. Over time, patience compounds into confidence, which quietly reshapes how you approach spending, saving, and investing. Confidence grows when results align with effort instead of constantly fighting against invisible forces. This alignment is what most people mean when they say money finally starts making sense. Sense-making matters because clarity allows progress without constant motivation or fear pushing every decision. At this stage, improvement feels sustainable rather than forced because systems carry weight instead of willpower. You begin trusting yourself again because decisions feel intentional rather than reactive or rushed anymore. This trust becomes the foundation for lasting financial stability and meaningful long-term freedom over time. 3. With stability in place, you can finally plan ahead instead of constantly reacting to unexpected financial surprises each month. Planning does not mean predicting everything, but preparing enough so problems feel manageable when they eventually appear unexpectedly. This is where money stops feeling like an emergency and slowly starts feeling like a practical, useful tool. Tools only work well when you understand them instead of fearing complexity or avoiding important financial decisions entirely. Many people avoid planning because they confuse preparation with restriction and freedom with spending everything immediately. Real freedom comes from having options, not from exhausting resources and hoping nothing goes wrong later. When options exist, pressure decreases, and decision-making becomes calmer, more intentional and strategic over time. Strategic thinking allows you to pause before spending and consider trade-offs without emotional overwhelm taking control. That pause is powerful because it separates intentional choices from habits that once controlled you unconsciously. Over time, these pauses stack together, creating noticeable progress without dramatic lifestyle changes or painful sacrifices. I want you to notice how different this feels compared to living in constant urgency and financial anxiety. Anxiety narrows thinking, but calm expands perspective, allowing smarter long-term decisions to emerge naturally. Calm does not mean complacency. It means confidence that your system will support you consistently. Confidence grows when actions align with values rather than impulses driven by stress comparison or fear. At this point, money begins reflecting your priorities instead of exposing hidden weaknesses within your habits. This alignment creates satisfaction because progress feels earned, sustainable, and personally meaningful over long periods. You stop measuring success by appearances and begin measuring it by stability, peace, and control. Peace is underrated because it rarely looks impressive, but quietly changes everything behind the scenes. With peace in place, financial growth becomes a steady process rather than a constant, exhausting struggle. This is when people realize they were never broken, they simply needed a better financial system. Before we finish, I want you to reflect on how differently you now see money compared to before. This awareness is powerful because understanding replaces fear and gives you space to respond instead of reacting impulsively. When you respond calmly, decisions improve, and small, consistent actions finally begin working together in your favor steadily. I want you to understand, progress does not require perfection, only honesty, patience, and commitment repeated over time. Most people fail because they quit too early, not because change was impossible or unrealistic for them financially. The systems you build quietly protect you during hard seasons when motivation disappears and life feels overwhelming suddenly. This is why consistency matters more than intensity when building stability, wealth, and long-term peace, financial overall. I want to be clear, there is nothing wrong with you for struggling in a confusing financial system. You were never taught these rules, and nobody showed you how small habits quietly shape outcomes over time. Once you see the rules, you can finally choose which ones deserve to guide your future financial life. This moment matters because awareness creates responsibility, and responsibility creates real lasting freedom over time, financially, emotionally, personally. Freedom is not unlimited spending, but the ability to handle problems without panic or shame, consistently, calmly, confidently. When you reach this place, money becomes supportive rather than threatening or exhausting, daily, financially, emotionally, long-term wise. That shift allows you to focus energy on life, relationships, health, and growth without constant money stress anymore. I hope you now see money as something you can work with, not something that controls you anymore. If this video helped you, share it with someone who feels stuck but never says it out loud. Quiet struggles grow lighter when shared, and conversations like this create relief for many people, financially, emotionally, long-term. Subscribe if you want steady, calm guidance about money without hype, fear, or unrealistic promises ever again online. This channel exists to help you build clarity, confidence, and control one step at a time, financially, sustainably. Once the system works, money finally breathes, and life feels lighter. Moving forward financially, emotionally, consistently over time. Geezies. As we reach the end, remember this journey is about building systems, not chasing quick fixes for lasting financial calm. You do not need radical changes, just small, consistent actions repeated long enough to compound peacefully over time together. Consistency will outperform motivation, especially when life becomes busy, unpredictable, and emotionally demanding for most people over years. When motivation fades, systems quietly carry you forward without requiring constant effort or discipline every single day reliably. This approach builds trust with yourself because promises are kept even during difficult seasons of life and change. Trust creates confidence, and confidence allows you to make decisions without fear. Controlling outcomes, long-term finances calmly. As confidence grows, money stops feeling personal and starts feeling manageable, practical, and neutral again for you daily. You no longer define yourself by numbers, but by stability, peace, and direction in your life overall now. Direction matters because it turns effort into progress and patience into results over long periods of time consistently. If you remember one thing, remember that broken finances reflect broken systems, not broken people at all ever. Tuwu. You deserve systems that support you, especially when energy is low and stress is high in real life. Start where you are with what you have, and build forward patiently without shame or comparison pressure today. Progress is not loud, dramatic, or impressive, but it is reliable and freeing over time when sustained consistently. As long as you keep going, small steps will eventually change everything in your financial life permanently ahead. I appreciate you staying until the end, because that commitment already says something important about your mindset today. Torait. If this message resonated, share it with someone who might need reassurance right now. Quietly and kindly, please. Subscribe for more calm, honest conversations about money designed for real life and long-term clarity growth together. Thank you for trusting me with your time and attention today. It truly matters more than you know. We will keep building this understanding together, one thoughtful step at a time, toward lasting financial peace ahead. Until next time, take care of your system, and your future self will thank you quietly, repeatedly over time. You what?